Daryl here, and this is my daily devotional. Most are familiar with the encounter between Moses and God through the burning bush. I want to take this devotional thought today and consider the mindset of Moses when this occurred. As you recall, Moses as an infant was placed in the basket in the Nile River, floated up, and was received by Pharaoh's daughter of all people. Now, Pharaoh raised Moses in Pharaoh's palace. Though he was Hebrew, he was raised with the Egyptians. He didn't have the opportunity to go to Hebrew Sunday school, so he would not have learned about his forefathers in the faith, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. He wouldn't have known about Joseph, who had come from Canaan to save the Egyptian and those of the Hebrew race from the famine. He would have missed all of that education. And so now he kills the Egyptian who was beating the slave of the Hebrews. He somehow knew, of course, that he was different, that he was of the Hebrew race. But being raised in the palace, he would have been raised with the pagan ideas that would have been taught the child of Pharaoh. So, he now runs for his life, and he comes to Midian, meets these daughters of the Midianite priest, and marries Zipporah. And now time passes, and he is tending the flock of his father-in-law. Now remember, he's been raised as an Egyptian, yet knowing that his real race was Hebrew. And so though he had a father-in-law who was a priest, when it comes to knowing God and knowing his faith, he would only have picked up on certain facets. In other words, when he heard the voice of God coming to him from the bush, he would have been more shocked as to who was speaking to him because his frame of reference was limited. For those like you and maybe, I know me and maybe you, I was raised in Sunday school. I was raised with the Bible stories read to me at bedtime. I have grown up in the faith. And I am so grateful for that because I have a foundation that can't be taken from me. But Moses didn't have that foundation. Just as an adult man minding his own business, tending the flocks of his father-in-law, he has his encounter with God. Let me read from Exodus chapter 3 at verse 1. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I'll go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. Oh, consider, Moses might not have known the name of the God of his Hebrew people, but bet your bottom dollar God knew his name. You know, he didn't know his name because as he goes on, he says, who should I say is sending me? Let me read. Moses said, here I am. Verse 5. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. And so he is told now, as we'll consider tomorrow, all of these directions about going back to Pharaoh, saying, let my people go free so they can go and worship the God of the Hebrews. So, as an adult, There are those who come to the encounter with God where they do believe and have faith, similar to Moses' encounter. But I am so thankful of my roots in the Bible from my childhood. God bless you. Good day.